We're surrounded by constant noise, notifications, feeds, endless opinions. We're talking all the time, but it feels like being heard less and less. There's an old philosopher, Epictetus. He pointed out something about our design. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth. The idea is we should listen twice as much as we speak. That's not just an old saying. It feels like a direct answer to all this noise now. This is about silence. The Stoics saw it as a discipline, and by the end, there's a framework, a way to make your speech something different. Not reactive noise, but something with power, clarity, peace. The Stoics thought every word was a moral act. There's a filter, 3 questions that can change conversations. That moment between an insult and your reply, something happens there, and then what it's like to actually choose your words. What that life feels like. In Stoicism, every word you speak is a choice. You're responsible for it, and this isn't a metaphor. For the ancient philosophers, speech was an action. It was a deed, just like a physical one. It carried the same ethical weight. They saw our capacity for reasoned speech logos as what set humans apart. It was a sacred faculty, a gift meant to be used with purpose and virtue, not wasted, not lost in careless chatter or emotional outbursts. This connects to a central Stoic idea, proherses. Our power of deliberate choice. It governs our inner citadel. It decides which impressions to accept, which actions to take, and speaking is one of the most frequent actions we perform. Marcus Aurelius, in his private writings, constantly reminded himself. He said to ensure every impulse, every action was directed by justice, and he included his speech in that. He held himself accountable for the words that left his mind. He treated them with the same seriousness as a decision to help someone or to walk away from a conflict. Now think about the difference this creates. You get a frustrating message. The immediate, hot reaction is to fire back a sharp reply. That's speech as a reflex. An unconscious spill of emotion. The Stoic alternative is to pause, to see that moment as a choice point. Your proherses, your faculty of choice, is presented with an impression. A feeling of insult, and then you choose your action. The virtuous action might be silence. It might be a simple, truthful clarification without added blame. It might be a question seeking understanding. The words themselves become a deliberate deed, aligned with your character, not a slave to the momentary feeling. So consider a conversation you had recently, maybe just today. When you spoke, did it feel like a chosen action, or did the words just tumble out, driven by habit, by a need to fill silence, by a surge of feeling you didn't examine? There's no judgment here, only observation. This is the first crucial step in reclaiming the lost art of silence, by first recognizing that speech is never neutral. It's always an expression of your character in that moment. This is where philosophy gets practical. There's an old framework that can change how you talk. It comes from Epictetus, the Stoic teacher. He gave a simple test, 3 gates for anything you're about to say. First, is it true? And not just correct, but is it aligned with what you actually know? Are you speaking from knowledge or from something you just assume? Second, is it necessary? Does this need to be said by you right now? Is it useful or is it just noise? Does it help the situation or is it more about your own ego? And third, is it kind? That one gets misunderstood. In Stoic terms, kindness isn't flattery. It's speaking with goodwill, a basic intention to help, not harm. It's the virtue of justice coming through your words. Epictetus taught this as a mental discipline. He didn't see these gates as social etiquette. He saw them as a tool for governing yourself. By running your impulse to speak through this filter, you're exercising your proherses, your power of choice. You're taking a raw reaction and putting reason to it. That cultivates honesty because you have to check your facts and your motives. It cultivates efficiency by cutting away unnecessary commentary. And it cultivates compassion by making you consider the impact of your words on someone else. So imagine you're in a team meeting. A colleague presents an idea and you spot a flaw right away. The old impulse might be to point it out publicly to show your own insight, but now you apply the filter. Is my observation true? Yes, it's a genuine issue. Is it necessary? Maybe. The flaw could derail things, so addressing it is useful. But is it necessary to say it right now, in this room, in front of everyone? And finally, is it kind? How can I frame this not as criticism of the person, but as a way to improve the idea? The filter might lead you to ask a question instead, or to offer your perspective privately later. The action changes from a performance of intellect to an act of constructive contribution. So before your next significant comment in any conversation, let these 3 questions sit in your mind. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? This isn't about staying silent. It's about making sure that when you do speak, your words have passed through these gates. They carry weight because they were chosen. Silence gets called emptiness, like there's nothing there to say, but it might be the opposite. It might be the presence of something bigger. Self-control, a kind of strategic patience. The world wants quick replies, constant commentary. Choosing not to speak in that world is a radical act. A kind of strength. That's where the Stoic idea of temperance fits. Sophrosyne. It's not about denial. It's about harmony. Proper measure. For speech, it means your words are measured. They're not missing. It's the discipline to hold back when you want to lash out, to correct someone, to be heard. That withholding stops unnecessary conflict. It keeps your dignity and the dignity of the person you're with. More than that, it creates a space for better judgment to form. Instead of reacting from raw emotion, you let the dust settle. Then you can see the situation clearly. Seneca wrote about this. He said a wise person speaks little, not because they have little to say, but because they know the weight words carry. The high cost of misspeaking. Every word you let out is a piece of your peace, a fragment of your attention. A wise person guards that. They protect that resource. You can look at history for examples. Cato the Younger, a Roman senator known for his Stoic principles. In the Roman Senate, debates were chaotic, vicious. He would sometimes just stay completely silent, while others shouted, made wild accusations. That silence wasn't passive. It was a deliberate tool, a political tool. It drew a stark contrast between his composed character and the hysterics of his opponents. His silence spoke louder than any insult. It broadcast integrity. Self-mastery. You see a modern version of this, choosing not to engage in a heated online argument, scrolling past a provocative comment, refusing to feed the negativity. That's an active use of silence, a powerful one. It's a declaration that your peace and your time are too valuable for that kind of fruitless conflict. So think about your own experience. When has staying silent felt more powerful than speaking up? Maybe it was during a personal criticism, when you bit your tongue instead of retaliating. Maybe in a meeting, when you listened fully instead of planning your rebuttal. That feeling of strength, that anchored calm, that's the power of active withholding. It turns silence from a void into a fortress. That fortress of silence, it serves a purpose. It's not a wall to hide behind. It's a space for listening. Real listening. The Stoics saw silence not as an absence of speech, but as an active cultivation of attention. It was the necessary ground for understanding. And understanding is the only real foundation for a wise response. Think about a typical conversation. Someone is talking, and you're there, but part of your mind is already crafting your reply. You're listening to argue, to correct. This is listening to reply. The Stoic alternative is listening to understand. It's focusing your entire faculty of attention on what is actually being said and on the person saying it. This applies their core principle: focus on what is in your control. You cannot control another person's words or opinions, but you have complete command over your own attention, your own comprehension. By choosing to listen fully, you are exercising control over the one thing you truly own: your mind. Zeno of Citium, the founder, was famously concise. His brevity came from a deep respect for listening first. He understood that wisdom enters through the ears, not the mouth. Epictetus put it bluntly. He said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." He wasn't describing a physical quirk, he was prescribing a mental discipline. So how does this feel? Recall a recent disagreement. The old pattern is to half listen while mentally rehearsing your defense. The Stoic shift is to disarm yourself. To decide, for these next few minutes, my only job is to understand their perspective, to hear the feeling behind their words, not to agree but to comprehend. This changes everything. It diffuses the defensive energy. It often reveals the core of the conflict isn't what you thought. It might be a need for reassurance, a feeling of being overlooked, a simple misunderstanding. You cannot discover this if you are talking or preparing to talk. You can only discover it in that attentive silence. So in your next conversation, make it a small experiment. When the other person is speaking, notice your own mind. Are you truly hearing them, or are you merely waiting for your turn to speak? That moment of noticing is the first step. It's the quiet click of a door opening, not to an empty room, but to a world of understanding you were too busy talking to see. Your inner peace tends to leak out through your words. When you speak from frustration or anxiety, you're not just talking about a disturbance, you're broadcasting it, you're reinforcing it in your own mind. The Stoics aimed for a state they called ataraxia, a serene tranquility, an unshakable calm. They understood that peace wasn't about managing the world. It was about managing their own reactions to it, and unnecessary speech, especially the kind driven by negative emotion, becomes a major leak in the walls of your inner citadel. Take venting or complaining. It feels like a release, like you're letting the pressure out, but from a Stoic view, you're doing something else. You're taking a fleeting impression, a feeling of annoyance, and you're giving it a voice. You're building a story around it. You're inviting other people to confirm it. And in that process, the feeling isn't released, it's amplified, it gets cemented. You've taken a temporary internal weather and treated it like a permanent fact. Gossip works the same way. It takes your attention, which is a precious resource meant for virtue and understanding, and it directs that attention toward judging others, toward drama that has nothing to do with your own moral progress. It scatters your focus, it agitates your soul. Marcus Aurelius kept reminding himself of this in his private writings. He said, "Don't let the chatter of the world pull you into its chaos. Don't allow your soul to be disturbed by things outside its control." He was talking about events, yes, but also the chatter of other people, and critically, his own internal chatter made external. When you give a voice to every minor grievance, you're choosing to disturb your own soul. You're voluntarily picking up the burden you claim you want to put down. Silence in these moments is the protective barrier. It's the conscious decision not to feed the disturbance. Imagine you're stuck in a long, unexpected delay. The immediate reaction is to complain out loud, to text friends about the injustice, to fume and narrate your frustration. The Stoic alternative is to notice the urge to speak and to choose silence instead. You sit with the feeling, you observe it without giving it a microphone. And in that quiet space, reason can finally get a word in. It can assess, this delay is outside my control, my reaction is within it, can I use this time? Maybe to think, to observe, to just breathe, and the emotion, denied the fuel of your own narration, begins to settle, like dust in a still room. Think of a recent moment of frustration. Maybe a rude comment from someone, a last-minute cancellation, a petty annoyance at work. Did you speak immediately from that feeling? Did expressing it make the feeling shrink? Or did it make the whole situation feel larger, more solid, more real? Now contrast that with a time you bit your tongue. You felt the heat of the reaction, but you held it inside the walls of your silence. What happened? Likely, the wave of emotion crested, and then it began to recede on its own. The situation lost its power because you refused to grant it your voice. That's the practical guard duty of silence. It's not about suppressing truth. It's about refusing to give your peace away to every passing storm. It keeps the citadel gates closed until you, from a place of calm, decide what truly deserves to pass through. There's a space between something happening and your reaction to it, and that space is critical. The Stoics would fill it with silence, but that silence isn't empty. It's where choice gets made. The old Stoics had a name for what happens in that gap. They called it the discipline of assent. Assent is your inner yes. It's the approval you give to a thought or a feeling when it comes into your mind. So someone says something harsh. The first impression is a sting, a flash of anger. That impression just happens. You can't stop it from showing up, but what you do next, that's everything. You have a moment. You can give that impression your assent. You can agree with it, let it become your truth, or you can withhold your assent. You can pause, you can examine it, and silence is the physical form of that withholding. Epictetus said we're disturbed not by events but by our judgments about them. A critical comment from a coworker, that's just an event. It's a series of sounds. The disturbance comes from the judgment you stick onto it, the story you tell yourself that they think you're incompetent, that they're trying to embarrass you, that it's unfair. In the moment, that judgment feels like a fact, and it demands a reaction, a sharp reply, a justification. But if you put a pocket of silence in there, you create a gap. A gap between the event and your judgment, and that creates room to ask, is this judgment true? Is it helpful? Is it the only way to see this? Take practical feedback. You get a message pointing out a flaw in your work. The immediate impression is defensiveness, embarrassment. The old pattern is to fire back, an explanation, a counter-critique, an emotional reply. But the discipline of assent, practiced through silence, works differently. You feel the surge, but you don't speak. You take a full breath. In those silent 5 seconds, you withhold your agreement from the story that says this is an attack. You examine the impression, and you might find the feedback, if you strip away your emotional narrative, actually contains a useful point, so your response can shift. From defense to considered gratitude, you can say, thank you for pointing that out, I'll revise it. The relationship stays intact, your dignity stays intact. And you might have even improved your work. This silent pause is a training ground for your proherses, your faculty of choice. It's where you take back sovereignty over your inner world. The world will always provide the stimulus, the insult, the delay, the disappointment. Your power lies in that space before you react, and your silence guards that space. It's the gatekeeper, so pick one common trigger in your own life. Maybe it's a certain person's tone of voice, or a type of request that always feels demanding. The next time you encounter it, make the practice tiny, make it concrete. Before a single word leaves your lips, count to 5 in the quiet of your own mind. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In that brief sanctuary of silence, you're not deciding what to say, you're deciding what to think. And from that clearer place, your words, when they finally come, won't be a reaction. They'll be a reply. Gossip is a kind of pollution, a toxin. The Stoics saw it as a threat to the soul's hygiene. When you talk about the private matters of someone who isn't there, their mistakes, their character, you're doing more than just talking. You're making firm judgments about things you don't control, and you're feeding the very passions a philosophical life tries to tame: contempt, a sense of superiority. Schadenfreude, your speech for a Stoic is supposed to be an instrument of virtue, of truth and justice and goodwill. Gossip inverts that. It takes the faculty of reason logos and uses it to dissect another person. To diminish them, it turns a person into an object for speculation, for criticism, and it poisons two people at once, the listener drawn into that negativity. And the speaker's own character gets eroded by that act of petty judgment. Seneca saw this danger in daily life. He wrote about choosing your company carefully. Not for comfort, but for moral protection. He advised fleeing the crowd, fleeing its corrupting talk. He wasn't calling for isolation. He was calling for a conscious avoidance of conversations that serve no purpose except to tear someone down. He understood that our environments shape us, that a constant drip of gossip reshapes your mind. It makes you focus on the wrong things, the flaws of others, instead of the development of your own virtue. Picture a common scene, a break room, a few colleagues. The talk turns to a manager's decision or a co-worker's personal life. The details are juicy, the judgments are flowing. The old, automatic response is to lean in, to contribute your own piece, to feel part of the group. The Stoic choice exists right there. It's not necessarily to give a lecture on ethics. It can be simpler, more powerful. It's the choice of silent non-participation. You might offer a neutral response and change the subject to a work project. You might find a reason to step away. You consciously refuse to add fuel to that fire. Your silence in that space isn't awkward. It's a quiet declaration. A statement of what you will and won't allow into your moral ecosystem. This applies perfectly to digital spaces, the group chat lighting up with speculation. The comment thread dissecting a public figure's every flaw. The Stoic hygiene practice is the same. You see the toxin for what it is, and you choose not to ingest it. Not to produce more of it. You scroll past, you close the tab, you redirect the conversation if you can. You protect your attention, which is the most precious resource you have for building a good life. So consider a simple audit. As you think about your conversations this past week, what percentage involved discussing someone who wasn't there? Was the purpose of that discussion necessary? Was it true? Was it kind? Or was it a form of social bonding through shared judgment? The answer isn't about guilt, it's about awareness, recognizing gossip not as harmless social glue, but as a subtle acid. Slowly eating away at the integrity of your own mind. Choosing silence here isn't a loss of social connection. It's the preservation of something far more important. Your own character. Your words are a kind of currency. You only have so many each day, and the Stoics, they tried to be frugal with them, to spend each word with real purpose. It's not about being short or cold. It's about respect for the listener's time, for their attention, and it's a commitment to clarity. When your speech is economical, every word has weight. It means something, and this ties directly to the clarity of your own thinking. Rambling explanations going in circles, that often shows a mind that hasn't fully grasped the subject yet. The effort to take a complex idea and distill it down to its essential parts, that's a mental discipline. It forces you to understand it deeply yourself. Precision in speech trains precision in mind. It's a feedback loop. As you practice speaking with clarity, your thoughts start to organize themselves with that same efficiency. The Stoics admired this in others. They'd point to the ancient Spartans who were known for laconic speech. Laconic isn't just brief, it's powerfully concise. Maximum meaning with minimal sound. A Spartan reply was meant to be definitive. No room for misinterpretation, no wasted breath. The Stoics weren't Spartans, but they respected that principle. That linguistic economy, Marcus Aurelius, he constantly reminded himself in his private journal to avoid superfluous words. He wrote to let every word stand with purpose. To strip away everything unnecessary. For an emperor whose words had the force of law, this was a necessity, both moral and practical. You see the difference in everyday life. Take 2 emails about the same project update. One is 3 long paragraphs. It meanders through background, minor details, tentative suggestions. The other is 3 clear bullet points. The current status, the one key decision needed, the proposed next step, which email gets read, understood, acted upon. The second one, it respects the recipient's cognitive load. It shows the sender has done the hard work of synthesis. That's Stoic economy in action. So here's a challenge. Pick a complex idea from your work, a hobby, something you care about. Something you usually need a few minutes to explain. Now try to convey its core essence in 3 sentences or less. Not every detail, the heart of it. This exercise isn't about dumbing it down. It's about finding its true center. You'll probably stumble at first. You'll reach for extra words to fill the space. But if you persist, you'll find the crystalline version of the idea. And in doing that, you'll understand it better than you ever did before. That clarity, once you have it, becomes a quiet superpower. In a world that's overflowing with noise, the most powerful response to an insult isn't a comeback. It isn't a correction. The Stoics had a different idea. A radical one. They proposed silence, not a weak silence, a serene indifference. They saw this as strength, the ultimate display of character, and a disarming tactic. When someone insults you, they're trying to provoke a reaction. They want to transfer their agitation to you, to get you to play their game. If you react with anger, with defense, you're handing them control. You're confirming their words have power. The Stoic alternative is to refuse the game, to remain unmoved. That silent indifference makes a statement. It says the insult can't touch your core virtue, your arete. It says your opinion of me isn't my business. My peace isn't for sale. This has a surprising effect. The provocation needs a response to feel complete. It needs your anger as fuel. Met with calm silence, it sputters out. There's nothing to push against. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this. He said the best revenge is to be unlike your attacker. If someone is rude or malicious, the counter is to not become like them. To keep your integrity, your peace, that's a victory no insult can take. There's a story about Socrates. He was known for his calm. After public abuse, a bystander was amazed he wasn't angry. Socrates asked a question. If someone tries to give you a gift and you refuse it, who does the gift belong to? The insult is like that unwanted gift. If you don't accept it, if you don't internalize it, it stays with the person who offered it. Your silence is the act of not accepting. This translates now. Think of an online troll, a nasty comment. The urge is to fire back, to defend. But what happens? It escalates. It becomes a draining back and forth. It gives the troll what they wanted: attention. The Stoic strategy is to see the comment as an attempt to provoke and to not accept the gift. You don't reply. You might delete it. This isn't running. It's a strategic withdrawal from a battlefield that only exists if you stand on it. It deprives the aggression of its target. And your peace remains intact. So consider this. What would it feel like to be truly unmoved by petty criticism? Not to suppress the feeling, but to have such a strong sense of your own character that the insult doesn't land. It's seen as noise, like bad weather outside a solid house. Every time you choose silence over a reactive reply, you build that muscle. You train your mind to see provocation not as a threat but as a test. A test you pass by keeping your peace, and in doing that you demonstrate a strength no angry word can match. The discipline of silence starts early. It begins in the morning quiet. There's a deliberate ritual. The Stoics had a name for it: premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of challenges. But it's not about dwelling on the negative. It's a training ground. It's where you set your verbal intentions for the day. You prepare your mind for the noise so you can choose your words from a place of calm. Think of it like a mental rehearsal. An actor runs through their lines before a performance. They imagine the stage, the audience, the possible distractions. The Stoics did this for life itself. They would sit in the morning stillness and calmly consider the day's likely challenges, the frustrating commute, the difficult colleague, the unexpected request. The key was to do this without emotion, to see these events not as catastrophes but as scenarios, and for each one to mentally prepare a response. Not a reactive outburst, a chosen, measured reply. Seneca described this. He wrote about his own nightly review and morning preparation. In the evening, he would ask what fault he had cured that day, what passion he had resisted, and in the morning he would look ahead. He said we should tell ourselves, I will meet with the busybody, the ungrateful, the arrogant. But I do not carry the expectation that these things should not happen. I carry the knowledge of how I will respond when they do. That's the core of the practice. You aren't trying to control the world. You are fortifying your inner citadel, so the world cannot control your speech. Let's make this practical. Close your eyes for a moment if you can. Think of one interaction you're likely to have today. Maybe it's a weekly meeting that often goes in circles, or a call with a demanding client. Now, in the quiet of your mind, visualize it. See the situation unfolding. Hear the potentially frustrating comment. Feel that initial twinge of irritation, and then pause. In this safe, silent space of your imagination, craft your response. Not the reactive one, the one you would choose from your best self. Maybe it's a single clarifying question, or a simple acknowledgement followed by a redirect to the facts. Plan just one calm, concise sentence. That's it. By doing this, you've done something profound. You've created a neural pathway. You've taken a potential trigger and connected it to a chosen action, not a raw reaction. When that moment arrives in real life, it won't be a surprise. Your mind will have a map. It will remember the route you plotted in the morning quiet. The space between the stimulus and your response will feel wider, more familiar. You'll be more likely to walk the path you prepared. So here's a small commitment to try. Tomorrow morning, before you check your phone, before the day's noise rushes in, give yourself 1 minute, 60 seconds of pure silence. Dedicate that minute to a single intention. Today, I will speak only what is true and necessary. Let that intention settle into your awareness. You are not promising perfection. You are simply setting the compass for your speech, orienting your inner dialogue toward clarity and purpose. From that anchored silence, your words, when they finally come, will carry a different weight. They will feel less like leaves in the wind and more like stones placed with intention, building something solid throughout your day. A good conversation doesn't require constant chatter. The deepest friendships often live in the quiet spaces between words. That's a Stoic insight about connection. For them, true friendship was a sacred bond, a union of souls who genuinely wish for each other's well-being. It wasn't built on entertainment. It wasn't built on gossip. It was built on mutual respect, on shared values, on a profound sense of trust. And in that kind of trust, silence isn't awkward. It's a sign of understanding so complete that words become optional. Seneca wrote about this. He described a friend as another self. A person you can share your thoughts with without fear. A person you can sit with in perfect quiet without any need to perform. That shared silence is a form of mutual presence. It's an acceptance. You're not trying to fix each other. You're not trying to amuse each other. You are simply being together, and that is enough. Now contrast that with a common social scene. A loud gathering where everyone is talking over each other. The conversation skims the surface. It jumps from topic to topic. It veers into judgment, into trivial complaint. It's high volume, but it feels shallow. It demands energy. Then picture a quiet walk with a close friend. You might talk about something important, or you might walk for 20 minutes saying very little. And yet you come away feeling understood, feeling replenished, feeling connected. That quiet companionship is the silence of depth. It says, I know you and I am here with you. No performance is necessary. This kind of friendship chooses depth over volume. It values the quality of attention over the quantity of words. In that peaceful silence, you are both practicing a form of Stoic attention. You are fully present, not lost in your own thoughts about what to say next. You are listening to the world together, or simply sharing the same peaceful space. And that shared attention becomes the foundation of the bond itself. So consider your own relationships, which people in your life allow for that comfortable, peaceful silence. With whom can you share a car ride or a meal without feeling the pressure to keep the conversation afloat? Those are often the connections that have moved beyond social transaction into something more substantial. They are the friendships where silence isn't a void to be filled. It's a garden where understanding grows. A lot of what we could talk about isn't our business. It sounds harsh, but that's the Stoic boundary. It's their main idea, the control split applied to what we say. We use so much energy, mental and spoken, on things we can't influence. Strangers' opinions, what acquaintances decide, distant events that just keep cycling. The Stoics drew that line. What's up to us? Our judgments, our impulses, what we want, what we do. And what's not up to us, everything else. Speaking is an action, so it's in the first part. It's up to us, but what we're talking about is often in the second part. When we talk about things we can't control, we're putting our attention, our intention, into something that has no bottom. Epictetus made it clear. He said, what's up to us? Our judgments, our impulses, our desires, what we avoid. Basically, anything that's our own doing. What's not up to us? Our body, our property, our reputation, any public role. Basically, anything that's not our own doing. This isn't about not caring, it's about focus. By choosing not to speak on externals, you're not ignoring the world. You're saving your limited energy for what you can actually affect. Your own character, your own responsibilities, your own immediate circle. Think of your mental energy like a budget. Every long opinion about a celebrity's life is a withdrawal. Every passionate argument about a political decision you didn't make is another withdrawal. Every piece of unsolicited advice to a colleague about their choice spends more. By the end of the day, the account is low. There's little left for what is actually your business. For patience with your family, for doing your work well, for your own reflection, the practice is a constant filter. You hear gossip about a neighbor. The old way is to lean in, to speculate, to add something. The Stoic filter asks one question: is this my business? Is there private matter in my control, or is it external? Seeing it as external, you choose silence. You see a heated debate online about a far-off conflict. The urge is to jump in, to take a side, to voice outrage. The filter asks again, is my comment within my influence? Will it change anything, or is it just spending my peace? Choosing not to give an opinion isn't indifference. It's deliberately keeping your inner resources for where they can actually do something. So here's a small exercise. Think of 3 topics you discuss or think about most. Write them down in your mind. For each one, ask honestly, does this topic have any real, direct impact on my own virtue, on my core duties, on the well-being of the people I'm directly responsible for? If the answer is no, you've found a stream of potential speech that, by the Stoic definition, isn't your business. That awareness starts to quiet the noise inside. It creates space where your words, when you do choose them, can be about something that actually matters. The final quiet of the day has its own strength. It's a space for honest reflection. The Stoics had a name for this nightly ritual, the examination of conscience. It wasn't about shame, it was an objective audit. Your speech was a central part of that ledger, a gentle debrief with yourself, a chance to learn from your words without any judgment. You sit in the evening stillness and you ask 2 simple questions. Where did I speak well today, and where did my words miss the mark? The goal is insight, not guilt. It's about spotting patterns, not punishing single moments. Seneca admired a philosopher, Sextius, who did this every night. Before sleep, Sextius would ask his soul, what ailment of yours did you cure today? What failing did you resist? He was looking at his moral progress, and for us, our speech reflects that progress directly. Did my words today build understanding or create friction? Did they clarify or did they obscure? Did they come from a place of calm reason or from a reactive emotion I didn't examine? So let's make it practical. Your review can be just 2 questions. First, what was my best use of words today? Maybe it was the patient explanation you gave a colleague, the kind word to a stranger. The moment you chose to listen instead of interrupting, acknowledge that. It reinforces the good pattern. Second, what is one thing I could have left unsaid? Maybe it was that sarcastic remark that slipped out, the unnecessary complaint about the weather, the piece of gossip you echoed just to feel included. Don't dwell on it, just note it, see it as data, a point where your intention and your action didn't quite align. This isn't about creating a list of failures. It's about cultivating awareness. When you do this for 3 nights in a row, you stop seeing isolated incidents. You start to see your own habits. You might notice you tend to speak hastily when you're tired, or that a certain person's tone reliably triggers a defensive comment from you. These patterns are the gold. They show you exactly where to apply your attention tomorrow. The evening review turns the lost art of silence into a learned skill. You are the student and the teacher in a quiet conversation with your own experience. You close the day not with regret but with a clearer map for the next one. You see where the unnecessary words tend to spill out, and you gently, firmly decide to build a better wall there tomorrow. This is how philosophy becomes practice, not in grand declarations but in the quiet audit of a day's spoken moments. Our best ideas come from the quiet we usually avoid. We think creativity needs input or talking or brainstorming, but the Stoics saw it differently. They saw silence as something full, as the place where insight actually grows. It's a kind of retreat, a withdrawal from noise so the deeper mind can do its work. When you quiet the outside chatter and the inside commentary too, you make space. Space for the subconscious to connect things, for patterns to show themselves, for a problem to look different because you've stopped looking right at it. Marcus Aurelius lived this. His writings, the meditations, didn't come from a busy desk. They came from stolen silence, late at night or early in the morning, in the gaps between ruling and empire. In that quiet, his mind could turn inward. He could sort his own judgments, separate what mattered from what didn't, and reach clear thoughts about virtue, about being human. That quiet wasn't passive. It was actively working the inner ground where wisdom grows. You see it in creative work. An artist stuck on a piece puts the brush down. They don't scroll for ideas. They take a long, quiet walk. No podcast, no music, just their steps and the world going by. And in that wordless space, the solution often comes. Not loud, just a quiet knowing. A writer blocked on a paragraph closes the laptop. They sit with tea, looking out the window. The right phrase surfaces. Not from forcing it, but from the stillness that lets it rise. This goes beyond art. A professional tangled in a complex project takes a thinking break instead of another meeting. They step away from the screen, silence the phone, and just sit. They let the tangled threads of the problem just be, and often the way forward gets clearer. The mind, free from the pressure to answer right now, gets to integrate things, to put pieces together. The silence becomes the workshop where the real assembly happens. So here's a small thing to try. Sometime tomorrow, take 10 minutes. 10 minutes of pure, intentional silence. No screens, no music, no background sound. You don't have to meditate, just sit or take a slow walk and let your mind be. Watch what thoughts come up. Don't judge them, don't follow them, just notice. You might be surprised, an old idea you'd forgotten, a simple answer to a small worry, or just a feeling of clarity that the noise had pushed out. This is the creative void the Stoics tended. It's still fertile, still waiting, right under the surface of all our words. Every promise you make is a small surrender. It's a piece of your future freedom given away. The Stoics saw it that way. They saw commitments as chains you forge yourself with your own words, an oath, a promise, even just saying I will. It's more than being polite. It's an act of binding your future self to a specific action, and the future is the one thing you can never fully control. To promise rashly is to risk your integrity. It puts you in a position later where you have to choose. Do you keep your word or do you act with virtue if things have changed? The Stoic idea of inner freedom demanded caution here. Extreme caution. They admired the Pythagoreans for this. The ancient Pythagoreans were said to be so cautious about oaths that they often avoided them entirely. They preferred simple, truthful speech without the added weight of a sworn vow. Epictetus carried this forward. He taught his students to guard their commitments the way they would guard their own character. He warned that a person who gives their word lightly becomes a slave to every passing whim, to social pressure. Their actions aren't directed by reason anymore. They're directed by the ghost of a past self, a self who spoke without thinking ahead. Think about a common situation. A friend asks for a significant favor. The pressure in the moment is to be agreeable, to be the helpful person. The easy, automatic word is yes, yes, of course, but the Stoic practice inserts a pause. It offers a different phrase. Let me consider it properly. I will give you a clear answer. That isn't evasion. It's a profound respect for your friend and for your own future capacity to actually deliver. It treats the commitment with the gravity it deserves. It lets you consult yourself, your inner citadel. Do I have the resources, the time? Does this align with my duties? Can I make this promise without compromising what I already owe or my own peace? By choosing silence or asking for time, you move. You move from a reactive yes to a chosen yes, or to a respectful no. Both of those are acts of integrity. So think of a promise you made recently, maybe just in the last week. It could be simple, agreeing to attend an event or to help with a task. In that moment when you gave your word, did you feel the full weight of it? That future obligation, did you consider what might change or what you might have to set aside to honor it? This reflection isn't about regret, it's about recognition. Your words aren't just for the present moment, they're seeds you plant in the soil of time, and you will be the one who has to tend them later. Choosing them with care, that is the practice, the ultimate practice of governing your own life. You can't draw water from an empty well, that's obvious. And yet we expect to speak with wisdom, to offer something meaningful, when our minds are always pouring out and almost never taking anything in. Stoic silence was never meant to be empty. It was fertile ground, it was for study, for deep reflection. It was time spent building an inner library, so when you finally chose to speak, you had something of substance to share. Your words can only be as deep as your thoughts, and your thoughts are shaped by what you feed them. So the discipline of measured speech starts long before you open your mouth. It starts in the quiet moments you spend filling your mind with good material. Seneca understood this. In his letters, he kept emphasizing daily reading. He wrote about conversing with the great minds of the past as if they were right there. He didn't see it as an academic exercise. He saw it as nourishment for the soul. He advised setting aside part of each day for this kind of input, to let the ideas of Zeno or Epicurus challenge your assumptions, to clarify your values, to stock the shelves inside you with timeless wisdom. That's the practical counterbalance to withholding words. Silence isn't just for holding back, it's for taking in, for the deliberate, patient work of building a reservoir. Think about your own mental input over the past week. How much of it was fragmented, reactive, designed to provoke a quick emotion, endless scrolling, sensational headlines, reactive commentary? Then how much was substantive, reflective, meant to cultivate understanding, a chapter from a thoughtful book, a period of quiet observation in nature? A deep conversation where you listened more than you spoke, The first kind of input creates a noisy, cluttered mental landscape. It primes you for reactive, shallow speech. The second kind creates order and depth. It primes you for considered, valuable speech. So here's a small swap to try. For the next 7 days, take 30 minutes you'd normally give to social media or passive entertainment. And in that 30 minutes, do just one thing. Read 1 page from Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, not 10 pages. 1. Read it slowly, then sit in silence for 5 minutes and let a single line from it echo. How does it apply to a challenge you faced today? What does it reveal about your own judgments? This isn't about speed or volume. It's about quality of engagement. You're having a silent dialogue with a wise mind, building your inner resources one thought at a time. Your challenge this week is to identify one reliable source of good input. It could be that philosophical text. It could be a thoughtful podcast you listen to on a walk without your phone. It could be just sitting in a park, observing the details of the natural world without any narration. The key is to engage with it in intentional silence. Let it fill the well, so when the moment comes to speak, you're not drawing from emptiness, but from a deep, clear spring of considered understanding. Having an opinion feels like a membership card now. You need one just to be in the room. The digital world wants hot takes, instant commentary. Every event, every announcement, you're supposed to have a public stance. Staying silent looks like ignorance or maybe complicity. That's a modern trap, and it goes right against the Stoic path to peace. This pressure to have an opinion on everything, it steals your attention. It forces you to judge things you don't control. It ties your inner state to all these external outcomes. Your emotional well-being gets linked to the news cycle, to distant leaders, to the shifting noise online. The Stoic alternative is a kind of radical humility. It's the choice to say, I don't know, or even, I choose not to have an opinion on that. This isn't apathy. It's a strategic withdrawal. You're pulling back your most precious resource, your focused attention, from battles you didn't choose, battles you can't win. This idea has deep roots. Long before the Stoics, Socrates was called the wisest man in Athens because he knew what he did not know. He understood the limits of his own understanding. The Stoics built on that. They saw intellectual humility not as weakness but as the foundation of wisdom. To claim an opinion on something you haven't studied, on a complex situation you're not part of, that's arrogance. It's a performance. It's speaking without passing your words through those 3 gates: truth, necessity, and kindness. Disciplined silence in the face of all this pressure is the ultimate assertion of control. It says my peace is not for sale to every trending topic. My mind is not a bulletin board for every passing controversy. You can watch this trap happen. A major news story breaks. Social media fills with instant analysis, polarized takes, moral grandstanding. The pressure builds to pick a side, to signal your virtue, to add your voice to the noise. The Stoic, watching this, asks a simple question. Is this within my sphere of influence? Do I have all the information to form a reasoned judgment? Will my comment add anything of value, or is it just a way to feel involved? Often, the honest answer leads to silence. It leads to closing the tab, turning your attention back to the work in front of you, to the people in your actual care. Here's a practical scene. You're at a family gathering. A heated political debate starts. Voices get raised, positions harden. You feel the expectation to jump in, to defend your view. The Stoic response isn't to engage on those terms. It might be to say calmly, I'm here to listen tonight, not to debate. Or, I find I don't have a fully formed view on that particular issue. This isn't evasion, it's a boundary. It protects the harmony of the gathering, and more importantly, it protects your own tranquility. You refuse to be baited into a conflict that serves no purpose but to stir emotion. You stay anchored while the storm of opinions rages around you. So here's a small exercise. Think of one trending topic right now. something filling the headlines or the social feeds. Something you feel a vague pressure to have a stance on, but you have no direct connection to. Maybe it's a celebrity scandal, or a distant conflict, or a cultural debate about some media you haven't seen. For just this one topic, practice internally releasing the need to form an opinion. Say to yourself, I allow myself not to know. I permit myself not to have a take. Feel the space that creates in your mind. It's a lightness. It's the feeling of putting down a weight you never agreed to carry. That space, that quiet freedom from unnecessary judgment, is where your own true thoughts can finally begin to breathe. Silence starts in the body before you ever speak. It's in the breath, in how you stand. That's the anchor. When you're about to say something sharp, your first thought is to speak. The Stoic move is to breathe, to feel your feet, to straighten your back just a little. This isn't for show. It's about making a physical space for the quiet you want inside. A slow breath is a reset for your whole system. It tells your body the crisis is passing. It makes a pocket of calm right there in the middle of everything. And a calm, upright posture does two things. It shows composure to others, sure, but more, it signals back to your own mind. It strengthens the state you're choosing. The Stoics didn't write exercise guides, but their idea of a wise person always had this harmony. Inner virtue showing as outer poise, someone whose movements were steady, whose presence was quiet. That outer calm wasn't a disguise, it was the visible part of a soul in order, the body and mind agreeing. So you start small, you start with the body. Before your next phone call, one that might be tense, take 3 breaths, in through the nose, out through the mouth, feel the air come in and go out. Don't pick up until the 3rd exhale is done. That 5-second ritual is a fortress, built with your body, or walking into a difficult meeting. As you reach for the door, pull your shoulders back gently. Let your spine lengthen. Take 1 full breath as your hand touches the handle. You're entering from a place of anchored calm, not from reaction. The words that come after will come from that different place. So for the next day, give yourself one simple task. Don't try to watch every word, just watch for the physical signs. The next time you feel that heat, that urge to speak without thinking, in a fight, in frustration, pause. And before anything else, notice your breath. Is it shallow and fast in your chest? Notice your posture. Are you hunched, braced for a fight? That moment of noticing is the practice. You're not trying to change it yet. You're just seeing the physical shape of your reaction. From that seeing, the choice becomes possible. You can choose the next breath. You can choose to soften your jaw. You can choose to let your shoulders drop. And in that quiet physical adjustment, the words that felt so urgent a second ago often lose their edge. They become something you can think about, something you can choose, instead of something that just escapes. There's this idea of the charismatic leader, the one who commands the room, but there's another model, much older, the quiet commander, where power comes not from how loud you are, but from how deep your silence goes. That Stoic leadership, it's built on restraint. When you speak less, you create a vacuum, and people step into that space. They bring ideas forward. Your silence becomes an invitation. It shows confidence. You don't need the first word or the last word to be in control. You trust the process. You trust the people. And then when you do speak, after that listening, your words carry weight. They aren't just more noise. They're the clear direction after the pause. Think of Marcus Aurelius. Roman emperor, he ruled the most powerful empire on earth, a position that could justify arrogance, constant decrees. But his personal writings show a leader focused first on ruling himself. He wrote that you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize that, and you find strength. His leadership started there with that inner command. The discipline to hold back his own reactions, to listen to advisors, to weigh counsel quietly before acting. That restraint stopped rash decisions. It meant when the emperor finally spoke, it came with considered judgment. Not emotion. Now picture a modern meeting. A project is in crisis. The team is together, tension high, everyone talking over each other, panicked solutions, defended positions. The manager in the room stays quiet at first. They listen. They take in every report, every outburst, every piece of data. That silence isn't passive. It's an active force. It slowly calms the room. People start listening to each other because the leader is listening. Then, after taking it all in, the leader speaks. Not a long speech, a clear, concise directive, one that synthesizes the key issues and charts a single path forward. That directive is respected, not because it was shouted, but because it was earned through silent understanding. This leader didn't micromanage the conversation. They managed the environment by managing their own impulse to control it with words. If you're in any kind of leadership role, a company, a team, a family, there are two questions. First, do the people you lead feel genuinely heard? Does your presence create space for incomplete ideas, for concerns, for contribution without immediate judgment or interruption? And second, are your interventions necessary? When you speak up, is it to add essential clarity, or is it to assert authority, to correct minor points, to satisfy your own need to be involved? The Stoic leader aims for the first. True authority isn't taken through speech. It's granted through demonstrated wisdom and often through the wise use of quiet. Your reputation, it builds slowly. Word by word, every time you speak, it's a kind of performance. The Stoics knew this. They called a good reputation a preferred indifferent, not the core of virtue, but something that helps life go smoothly. It's worth caring for but not chasing, and the main thing that shapes it is your speech. Once you say something, it's not yours anymore. It becomes a memory in someone else's mind. You can't take it back, and when you speak carelessly, when you exaggerate or you're inconsistent, you're not just sharing information, you're building an image. An image of someone who's unreliable, maybe someone without self-control. That damages what you could call your social character, your ability to function with others, to build trust. Musonius Rufus talked about this. He said we shouldn't be slaves to opinion, but we should still care for our reputation through honorable action, and speaking is an action. So it needs to be honorable. Careless words are like small cracks in a foundation. They might not cause a collapse right away, but they weaken things over time. Think about sharing a secret you promised to keep. In that moment, you trade trust for a bit of social currency. The damage is instant and usually permanent. The person who told you sees a flaw. Others who hear it see you as a leak. Your social character shifts. You're not a confidant anymore, you're a gossip. Your word isn't your bond, but it's not just big secrets, it's smaller things, exaggerating a story to make it better, making a promise you don't really intend to keep. Complaining about minor things consistently. Each one is a brushstroke, and together they paint a portrait of someone not quite grounded in truth. Not entirely dependable, so here's a thing to consider. Think of one piece of information you share freely, maybe a frustration about your job, something you tell acquaintances, or a detail about your health or finances that comes up. Ask yourself, does sharing this serve a real purpose? Does it build understanding, or is it just a habit? Could holding it closer actually protect your social character? Would it make you seem more composed, more resilient, more measured? This isn't about secrecy. It's about discernment, choosing what to release into the world and what to hold inside your own quiet space. That's a daily practice. It crafts the person others believe you to be. And maybe more importantly, it reinforces for you who you choose to be. The fear of missing out at its deepest is really the fear of missing your own peace. That quiet center, it gets lost in the endless scroll, the constant need to know, to comment, to be seen. And this is where an ancient discipline meets a modern idea, the joy of missing out. Jomo, it's not about ignorance, it's that profound relief of choosing your attention. And at its heart is a practice of silence, a digital silence. Every notification is an impression. A tiny demand for your assent, and every trending topic is a crowd shouting for your emotional energy. The Stoic choice applied here is actually very simple. You can withhold your assent, you can choose not to react, you can close the tab, you can turn off the sound. This isn't a retreat from the world. It's a strategic withdrawal into the one thing you own, your own mind. Seneca wrote constantly about the need to retreat from the crowd. He saw the public forum as a place that could infect you with its anxieties, its misplaced values. He advised regular periods of solitude, not to hide but to recover your own judgment. If he were here now, he'd likely see our digital feeds as the ultimate global crowd. A crowd that never sleeps, never disperses, and is perpetually in a state of outrage or desire. His advice would be the same. You must withdraw, not forever, but deliberately. To remember who you are when you're not performing for an audience of strangers, which leads to a practical experiment, a speech fast but for the digital space. Choose one social media platform. For 1 week you will only consume, you will not post, you will not comment, you will not hit like, you'll simply observe. Watch what happens in your mind. You'll feel that initial itch to contribute, to correct, to share. That itch is the impulse you're now training. By not acting on it, you create that critical space. The space between the impression, a provocative post, a beautiful vacation photo, and your reaction. In that space, you reclaim your choice. You might find the urge to speak online was often just a reflex. A habit of mental chatter seeking an outlet, and the silence you cultivate online will start to seep into your offline life. The compulsion to fill every quiet moment with input will lessen. So here's a direct invitation. For the next 7 days, delete one social media app from your phone. Not deactivate your account, just remove the easy access. Notice the empty space where that icon was. Each time your hand moves toward that space out of habit, pause, take one breath. In that moment, you are practicing the Stoic discipline of assent in the most modern arena. You are choosing what enters your mind. Observe the effect on your internal dialogue. Is it calmer, less reactive, more your own? This silence is an active cultivation of joy. The quiet joy of being present in your own life, rather than anxiously watching a curated version of everyone else's. A calm nod can say more than 1,000 defensive words. For a Stoic, the reaction to praise and criticism might look the same, just an acknowledgement, a quiet breath. It's not indifference, it's a kind of emotional hygiene. It treats the compliment and the insult the same way as external judgments. They're just data points about what someone else thinks. They're not verdicts on your worth. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this. He said you could be praised to the skies or cursed as a monster, and neither one should move you from your path. He reminded himself that your essence, your guiding principle, stays untouched by the noise of others. Your character is an internal project. It's built action by action. It can't be inflated by flattery, and it can't be diminished by slander. Both are just weather passing by the solid house of your virtue. Think of the last time someone praised you, maybe for a presentation or some personal achievement. The immediate reaction is often a swell of pride. A rush of pleasure. We might deflect awkwardly, or we might cling to those words internally, letting them define our mood. The Stoic sees that swell as a potential trap. It's handing over your inner state to someone else's opinion. The practice is to insert a moment of pure silence, to feel the compliment land, and just observe it without grabbing onto it. You might say a sincere thank you for saying that, but the internal work happened in that quiet space. You acknowledge the kindness without letting it rewrite your self-assessment. Now picture the opposite, a harsh critique delivered unfairly. The sting is immediate, the body tenses, the mind scrambles to defend, to list reasons why the critic is wrong. Here, the same practice applies. That initial silence is a firebreak. It stops the emotional spark from becoming a blaze of reactive speech. It creates the gap where you can ask the Stoic question, is this within my control? The other person's judgment is not, my reaction is. From that comma place, your response can be the same measured phrase. I hear your perspective. I will reflect on what you've shared. This isn't agreement. It's a dignified receipt of information. It protects your peace and often disarms the conflict entirely. The core insight is that both extremes, praise and blame, pull you outward. They try to tie your sense of self to something you don't own. The quiet, centered nod is an act of recentering. It pulls you back inward to the only ground that is truly yours. So here's a small practice for the week ahead. The next time you receive a genuine compliment, big or small, pause. Take one full, silent breath before you respond. In that breath, notice the internal tug, the urge to puff up with pride or to shrink away in false modesty. Just watch that urge like a cloud passing. Then offer your thanks. You'll find the compliment loses its power to destabilize you, while keeping all its power to be a kind gesture. This is the equanimity of silence. It turns both applause and accusation into nothing more than the sound of the wind. The art of silence, perfect speech, that's the culmination. The quiet isn't the goal. It's the preparation. The Stoic sage, that ideal, wasn't a mute statue. They were a reservoir of clarity. They spoke only when the gates of truth and necessity and kindness were fully open. Their words were rare, and because they were rare, they carried the weight of gold. Each one had been tempered in restraint, examined in reflection, chosen for its power to serve virtue. After all that discipline, speech isn't a reaction. It's a deliberate act of creation. It builds understanding, it mends a rift, it defends a principle. It's impactful because it isn't diluted by 1,000 lesser utterances. Think of Nelson Mandela. 27 years of enforced silence and reflection. His words upon release weren't of bitterness, they were of reconciliation and nation-building. That speech carried immense power because of the profound quiet that came before it. Or Winston Churchill's wartime addresses, their strength wasn't in constant chatter, it was in the measured, resonant clarity that emerged at the most necessary hour. These are echoes of the Stoic ideal. A lifetime of quiet service gives authority to the single, powerful public stand. Years of listening grant wisdom to the counsel offered in crisis. So let this be a mirror. Look at your own patterns of speech. Identify one arena, maybe a group chat, a family dynamic, your own internal narrative, where your words are currently too many. Where they're spent on the trivial, the reactive, the unnecessary. Then, identify one arena where your voice is truly needed but remains silent. Is it a truth you've avoided stating to a friend? A constructive idea you've withheld at work? A word of comfort you've left unspoken? The practice of Stoic silence is the bridge. It teaches you to withdraw your voice from the places where it's merely noise, so that you can gather the courage and clarity to lend it fully where it can be a genuine force for good. The sharpest wit can cut deep. It feels clever, a flash of verbal skill that gets a laugh. But the Stoics saw that kind of speech as a kind of poison. They called it a vice, not because it wasn't funny, but because it was a choice, a deliberate choice to inflict a small wound for social gain. That sarcastic remark, that perfectly timed put down, it's a transaction. You trade a moment of someone else's dignity for a moment of approval from the group. It violates kindness, not through open hostility, but through a masked cruelty, one that asks the victim to laugh along, and underneath, it rarely comes from a place of secure confidence. More often, it's a tool of insecurity, a way to elevate yourself by subtly diminishing someone else, to control a social dynamic through the power of the barb. The Stoic teachers were explicit about this. Musonius Rufus warned his students to avoid vulgarity and mockery in their speech. He wasn't advocating for blandness. He was advocating for integrity. He taught that our words should aim to be helpful, to build up, not tear down. Sarcasm does the opposite. It tears down for sport. Seneca echoed this. He cautioned against speech that's sharp and biting. He saw that kind of talk as a sign of a disordered soul, one that takes pleasure in the minor suffering of others. For a philosophy built on virtue and social duty, that's a clear failure. It harms the social bond, the sympathia that connects us, for the cheap price of a chuckle. You see it play out anywhere, a group of friends talking. One person makes a minor mistake in a story, misremembers a detail. The easy, automatic move is to pounce, to make the witty correction that highlights the error, to get a laugh from the others at their expense. The person laughs it off, but a tiny fracture forms. Trust erodes just a little. The conversation becomes more performative, a bit less safe. The Stoic alternative is to let the minor error pass, or if correction is genuinely necessary, to offer it quietly. Without the theatrical flair, you prioritize the person's feeling of belonging over your own moment of cleverness. So here's a direct challenge. For one full day, make a conscious decision to eliminate sarcasm from your speech. Not humor, genuine, joyful humor is a gift, but the humor that relies on irony at someone else's cost, the eye-rolling comment, the backhanded compliment. The joke that only works if someone is the butt of it. Go a full 24 hours without it. What you'll likely notice is how often the impulse arises. It's a default setting for many of us, a way to navigate social waters, and as you resist it, you'll have to find other ways to engage. You might ask more questions. You might offer genuine praise. You might sit in a silence you would have filled with a cutting remark. Observe the quality of your interactions. Do they feel warmer, more substantial, less fraught with subtle competition? This isn't about becoming humorless. It's about discovering a different kind of connection, a more generous one. One that wit alone can never build. You don't have to go silent to start. Pick one small thing, something so small it's almost easy. The point is progress, not some perfect change overnight. It's about getting your attention back, your peace, one quiet choice after another. Think of them as little experiments. Your first one could be the 3 gates. Try it for a whole day. Before you speak, just pause. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? You don't have to tell anyone, just check inside. You'll see how many things don't get past the second question. The break room talk, complaining about traffic, giving an opinion on something you can't change. That one day of filtering shows you really clearly how much of what you say is just automatic. Another experiment is the pause for assent. Pick one trigger, maybe an email from a certain person, or a chore that always annoys you. Next time it happens, your only job is 5 seconds of silence. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, breathe. In that space, you're practicing not agreeing with the first hot feeling. You're building the muscle that picks a response instead of a reaction. Then there's the evening review. For 1 week, take 3 minutes before bed. Ask 2 questions. Where did my words do some good today? And where did they just come from habit or emotion? Do it without judging yourself. You're like an archaeologist brushing sand off the artifacts of your own day, seeing the patterns in your speech. And we can't forget the digital part. A strong experiment is 1 silent meal a week. 1 meal, alone or with people, where you don't touch a phone or any screen. You just eat, you taste the food. You notice the room. If you're with others, you talk, but you listen more. It takes back a basic human space from that constant drip of digital noise. It's a sanctuary for your attention. Seneca had the right mindset for all this. He wrote, "I'm not perfect, but I'll try every day to be less imperfect." That's the spirit. You're not trying to live like a monk. You're practicing daily to be less ruled by the noise outside and inside. Every time you pick the quiet breath over the reactive word, you're chipping away at the old patterns. You're carving out a new shape for your character. So here's an invitation. From all these ideas, pick just one practice for the next 7 days, just one. The 3-gate filter for a day, the 5-second pause on a trigger, the nightly review, one silent meal. Write it down if you want, put it where you'll see it. This is your experiment, your own look into the lost art of silence. See what happens. Does a hard conversation feel easier? Does your mind feel less cluttered at night? Do you find more patience for life's small irritations? The effects are often subtle but deep. They start as a quiet space in a busy day, and they grow into a calmer, more steady feeling. This is how you bring philosophy in, not by mastering a theory, but by living one small question. What happens if I speak a little less and listen a little more? Your own experience over these next 7 days will give you the only answer that really matters. Silence done like this isn't just an empty space. It's something you put there. Something you do on purpose, and this whole look at silence, it wasn't about learning to be quiet. It was about learning to be free, free from all that noise you just react to. Free to pick your words, and when you pick your words, you're picking who you are, your peace, what you put out into the world. We started with speech. Seeing it not as just talk, but as something you do, a moral action, something you're responsible for. It comes straight from inside you. Then we built a filter for it. 3 gates. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? A way to choose that action with some wisdom. And we looked at silence itself as a kind of strength. A wall to protect your attention, your calm. A space where you can actually listen, where you can actually think. This practice, this discipline, it takes the noise of everything now and turns it into something you can move through. Not just something you suffer, it brings a real clarity. Your words start to mean more because you use fewer of them. Your mind finds peace because it's not fighting every idea that comes along. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this. He wrote about the tranquility that comes when you put your mind in order, when you see what's yours and what isn't. And you only speak, you only act in line with that tranquility of the soul. That's the real point. It's a quiet center. Nothing outside can really touch it. So mastering this art of silence, it's a radical thing. You take back agency. You take back sovereignty over your own inner world, your judgments, your reactions, your attention, and from that ground, that inner ground you've reclaimed, you change how you affect the world outside. Your words become deliberate, your presence becomes steady. Your life becomes your own. So to end, a question, an invitation. Of everything we went through, what stuck with you right now? Was it speech as an action? The 3 gates, the power of just pausing. And what's one small thing you'll do this week to bring a bit more of that quiet into your days? Put your thought in the comments. I read them, and if this path to clarity was useful, consider subscribing. We can keep looking at this kind of wisdom, practical, ancient wisdom, for a world that's very noisy now. Thanks for listening.